Anybody with two functional eyeballs can come to the executive decision that, oh yeah, that wasn't pass interference. But here's the problem, is the SEC officials in that game quite literally got bullied by the Texas student section into reversing the call. You can't do that. You can't get bullied into changing a call. That can't happen. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you had a great weekend watching some college football. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. Man, oh man, you know what we're about to do. We don't have brand new around here. It's a Week 8 recap. It doesn't get any simpler than this. We're going to recap all the games. That's what we do on Sunday. Or at least all the important games, that is. And we had a top 5 matchup with big and bad Texas and Georgia. Whew. That turned into a blowout. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And what about Alabama? They're still on the struggle bus. Miami does what Miami does. They win a close one. And I'm telling you, do not sleep on this team. The Clemson Tigers, they look really good. Wait a minute. Did somebody say really good? Speaking of really good, how about Indiana? Curt Cinetti. If you don't know his name, you better start learning it. He will not be at Indiana much longer. Some other big-time schools are going to be calling his name. He's got his team playing out of their minds. Texas A&M, they remain at the top of the SEC 4-0. LSU takes care of business with Arkansas. That was an impressive win because normally that's a close ball game. What about the Big 12? I need to talk about them more. The top teams in Big 12, BYU and Iowa State, they sneak out some close ones. A couple other games we're going to talk about and mention. Oregon had a cupcake on Friday night. And shout out to the Buffaloes. Coach Prime, he's got them boys looking good. Per usual, I'm extremely excited to get into this video. I hope you're excited as well. So strap in, buckle up, get you a snack, get you popcorn, get your favorite meal you like to eat when you watch a video. Because trust me, I do the same thing. But all right, Matt, blah, blah, shut the crap up. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, let's start with our Friday night games first. Oregon, I'm going to talk about this game for about roughly 5 to 8 seconds. They dominated. Purdue sucks. Oregon, one of the best teams in the nation. That's all we need to say about it. What about this one, though? BYU. I don't want to sit here and say I have no idea how they came back at the end of the game, because I do. Oklahoma State isn't a good football team. They blew that one. But give credit to BYU. The odds were stacked against them. They needed a game-winning touchdown drive, and they delivered. That was a really fun game to watch, and don't look now, but they are 7-0. Great win for them there. And to start things out at 11 a.m. on Saturday, we had Miami and Louisville. Game went exactly how I thought it was going to go. Extremely high scoring, no defense whatsoever, but I did have Louisville pulling off the upset. They didn't. And we got to talk about it. It's 45-38. It looks like Louisville forces a fumble on Cam Ward. They scoop and score to tie it 45-45. But hold on. Just like Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. The play, although I thought it was, it was controversial. We'll leave it at that. It gets called back. Was his arm moving forward? Debatable. But remember, to overturn a call, you have to have 100% video evidence. You got to be sure of that call if you want to overturn it. And it feels like, yet again, the ACC just bails out Miami on that instance. It's just funny how every time there's a questionable or iffy call, it goes Miami's way. I'm not trying to take away from what they did, but that was a huge momentum shifter. Cam Ward does this thing, but let's not act like Louisville's some top-notch opponent. They're unranked for a reason. But hey, congratulations to Miami. You're 7-0. Clemson also kicked off at 11 a.m., and I was kind of concerned for them when Virginia had the lead, but they took over. I'm telling you, man, Clemson is not a team you need to be sleeping on. I feel like everybody wrote them off after Georgia smashed them by 30 points, but they're a legit playoff team. I say this every week, and I hate to sound like a broken record player, but I'm going to continue to say it. Keep your eyes on Clemson. I don't care what anybody says. This was more shocking than the Georgia and Texas game. Indiana. I did pick Indiana to win this game because of Curt Cinetti, and I love me a winner, and he is a winner. If you don't know who he is, like he says, Google him. 56-7? Come on, man. Matt Rule, what are we doing, buddy? That is beyond embarrassing. Losing by half 100 is insane, especially when you take into account the line for this game was only a few points. If you'd have told me before that game Nebraska was going to lose by 50, technically 49, but, I'm just rounding up here, I said, yeah, you're doing drugs or you're out of your mind. I watched the game, and I still can't believe it happened. There's no explanation for it. Curt Cinetti has those guys playing out of their minds, and I'm really high on Indiana. Dylan Ravioli, to say he struggled would be understating it. He looked like a deer in headlights. He couldn't do nothing out there. That Indiana defense had him on lockdown. To go on top of Indiana's defense, their offense was clicking on all cylinders, and yeah, that's how you get a 50-point win. Big shout out to Curt Cinetti. I love what he's doing with that team there. One of the better teams in the Big Ten. I tell you what, though, this was a heck of a game. Auburn and Mizzou. As we all know, Auburn's pathetic. They're known this year for just blowing games, and they somehow, someway blew this one. Missouri played half of this game with a backup quarterback who could barely even get a first down. Auburn jumps out all over them, and you look up, Auburn's up by 11, but guess what? Brady Cook, Missouri's quarterback, he comes back from injury. Auburn's up 17-6, and just like that, you look up, boom. Missouri's up 21-17. I could sit up here and talk about this game for hours, but all you need to know is it was the Peyton Thorne experience. Auburn can't close games. This team is just, it goes back to what I say, winners win, losers lose. Indiana, they win. Why? They're winners. Auburn, they're losers. So what do? They lose. Auburn finds a new way to lose every single week, and I genuinely feel bad for that team, the fan base, and the program. It's sad because they're not terrible, but they just have some silly mistakes that has costed them multiple games this year. I'm not going to talk about this too much. Extremely boring game. By the way, shout out to Illinois. Those helmets, I don't care what anybody says, those helmets were fire. I like those, and I wish they would continue to bring out those helmets every single week. I don't even know if it was a one-time thing. Maybe it is, but I'd love to see them again. Not shocked that Illinois won this game. Michigan, well, you know what it is. You know what I'm about to say. They don't have a quarterback. It's not even like Michigan's defense is really that good. They're not. It's more so of, look, if you can't score points, you're not going to win. Shout out to Illinois. I believe don't they got Ohio State next week? That'd be an interesting game. Or at least I hope it is for our sake. And what about this one? Mississippi State, the worst team in the SEC yet again. They play a top team in the SEC pretty close. Texas A&M does win this game by 10 straight points, but they didn't look all too hot. But who cares? Georgia also showed Mississippi State, and we saw what Georgia did to Texas. Although Mississippi State is the worst team in the SEC, maybe they're not as bad as we originally thought. Not too much to say about this one. Arkansas, they didn't have anything for LSU. LSU just steamrolled them. What about this one? UCF, they've been struggling all year long. They almost upset top 10 Iowa State. The craziest part about this game is Iowa State allowed 354 rushing yards. I'm going to say that again, 354 rushing yards. They gave up 9.1 yards per carry and still won the game. They came up clutch, and Iowa State and BYU are in similar situations. Didn't play good teams. They probably should have lost the game, but they found a way to win. Congratulations to them, and the Big 12 has been pretty interesting to watch this year. Alabama, Tennessee, we've talked about that a lot on the channel already, so just due to, us talking about it, making separate videos, not going to talk about it too much in this one. I will say this, Alabama's just not very good anymore. It's obvious. With Nick Saban leaving, this team doesn't have any discipline, and it's no longer a dictatorship. It's a democracy. These players, it feels like the prison is now run by the inmates, if that makes sense. I hope that's a good analogy. When Saban was there, he ran the prison. But now the inmates are running the prison. These players don't have any discipline. The coaches are doing a terrible job. It's a crap show. It is a huge mess in T-Town. The only reason it doesn't look any worse than what it does is because these players are so talented they can make up for the lack of discipline sometimes. And when you combine Alabama not playing up to their typical Alabama standard and Tennessee being a really good defensive team, yeah, that's what happens. You lose games. I've tried to give Tennessee as much credit as I can, but let's not act like they played good either. They missed 2 field goals and had 3 detrimental turnovers in the first half and still won. That goes to show you how good the Tennessee defense is. They're not going to be competing for a championship this year, but they may sneak into the playoff. Who knows? Getting into the biggest game of the night, we got Georgia and the Texas Longhorns. I hate to be short, y'all, and your boy Matt loves to talk about college football more than anybody else, but if I can keep things short, simple, and sweet, that's what I like to do. Georgia just beat the absolute crap out of Texas. They were no match for them. What's crazy about this is Carson Beck had 0 touchdown passes, 3 INTs, and Georgia still blew him out of the water. The final score is extremely deceiving. Wasn't that close. And what about that pass interference call? I talked about it a little bit last night, but I'm going to talk about it again today. How does that even happen? Look, it shouldn't have been pass interference on Texas. We all know that. Anybody with 2 functional eyeballs can come to the executive decision that, oh yeah, that wasn't pass interference. But here's the problem, is the SEC officials in that game quite literally got bullied by the Texas student section into reversing the call. You can't do that. You can't get bullied into changing a call. That can't happen. Georgia got screwed over there because if those fans don't throw all those beer cans or whatever they were throwing on the field, the call never gets changed. On the grand scheme of things, didn't matter, but if Georgia would have lost that game, I can't imagine how, I'd have been pissed off for Georgia. I can't imagine how pissed off the fans, players, and everyone affiliated with the program would have been. Kirby Smart was so mad about it, he was talking about it after the game. That was just, it's just inexcusable. It can't happen, and it shouldn't happen again. But outside of that, let's talk about the Georgia defense, because the Georgia offense only had 285 total yards. They didn't really do too much. This game was just more of an indictment on how unreal the Georgia defense is. Not too sure what happened against Mississippi State in that first half against Bama, but this is the Georgia defense I expected to see all year long. They were the real deal. They had Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers looking like they never touched a football before. That was the worst game I've ever seen Quinn Ewers played. He just straight up sucked. And the biggest storyline of this game is Texas couldn't pass the ball, they couldn't run the ball, they couldn't do anything on offense, and that's why they lost. That's all there is to it. When we have a close game, there's normally a lot to talk about, but when you have a game like this that was so lopsided, there's nothing to talk about. It's simple. Georgia was a better team. Period. The end. Oh, yeah. What about Colorado, man? Gotta show them some love. Blew out Arizona. I know Arizona's not great, but they took care of business. 34-7. Hey, I'm going to clap it up to Coach Prime. What a heck of a job he's done there. This program won one game 2 years ago. 5-2. Heck of a year. I thought if he won 6 games in year 2, that'd be an unreal achievement, and it looks like he is well on his way to do that. Colorado might sneak out 8-9, potentially. I know it sounds absurd, but maybe 10 wins this year, counting the bowl game. I saved these 2 SEC games for last. I didn't forget about y'all. South Kakalaki and Oklahoma. No lie. I was watching 4 other games because I got YouTube TV and you watch 4 games at once. I was watching 4 games, and those 4 were not South Carolina, or one of those 4 did not include South Carolina and Oklahoma. And I flipped it over to that game, and there was 9 minutes to go in the first quarter, and I looked at the score. It was 21-0. I'm like, dude, I even tweeted out, I'm like, can somebody explain me what happened? I only missed 6 minutes, and Carolina's got 21 points. Come to find out, yeah, Michael Hawkins happened, and that OU offense happened. They suck. Like, you hear people say, oh, yeah, they suck, like not even meaning it. No. They actually suck. The South Carolina OU game was very similar to Georgia and Texas. The South Carolina offense actually got outgained. They had 256 total yards of offense. OU had 291. The difference maker in this game was Oklahoma's turnovers, the pick six, the scoop and score, and just so on and so on. Here's another thing. Jackson Arnold fumbled the ball a couple times. He recovered it. OU got fortunate. It wasn't worse. Give credit to South Carolina. They got great edge rushers, and I thought Lenore Sellers played a really good ball game, especially scrambling, making plays. He did his job. But man, oh man, the biggest storyline from that game is OU. They are awful. And when you play these SEC teams and a team with an SEC defense that has future NFL draftees on the team like South Carolina, they're going to expose your weaknesses, and that's what happened. Huge win for South Carolina. Shane Beamer has them playing what he calls Beamer ball. And what about this one? Florida and Kentucky. Florida beat the crap out of them, but this was DJ Lagway's first start as now the quarterback from here on out. He started a couple games early in the season, but we knew Graham Mertz was going to return. Now, it's his team because Mertz is not coming back. Lagway did his job, and it's really unfortunate Florida blew that one last week because if they beat Tennessee, they are sitting at a very pretty 5-2. Shout out to Florida, man. That's a big win. Kentucky, yeah, ever since that Georgia game, it's just been downhill. Or not after the Georgia game, my apologies, the Ole Miss game. The SEC is no joke this year. They're eating themselves alive. It's crazy to watch. You got to think about what's transpired. Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat the crap out of South Carolina. South Carolina beat the crap out of Oklahoma. Alabama beat Georgia. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Vandy beat Kentucky. Then the team who lost to Vandy, Alabama, they beat Georgia, right? Then Georgia beats the crap out of Texas. It is a mess, and like normal, the SEC just cannibalizes itself. Many more things I could say, but I do want to make this a short, simple, and sweet video. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But